Resourceful Designer, episode 168. Cold emails. 10 tips to help them convert.
Welcome to the Resourceful Designer Podcast, offering solutions to streamline your graphic and web design business so you can get back to designing. And now, your host. He didn't know what he wanted to do with his life, so he did an extra year of high school. Twice. Mark DeCote.
Welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for pressing play on whatever device it is you're listening to. In this episode, I'm going to share 10 tips that will help your cold emails convert. I'm going to share a tip of the week, which may be common sense, but I'm going to say it anyway, before ending the episode with a question from Will about Adobe certification. Now, what have I been up to lately? Well, yesterday I had a nice long chat with my accountant just to discuss things about the business and all the different aspects that I'm doing because I'm growing things. We've got the podcast, I've got some other side projects, some affiliate things, and all of that. So it was a nice little conversation with my accountant as I submitted all my stuff for tax season. Here in Canada, if you're running a business, we have till June 15th to submit all our tax information. I know those of you in the US are probably a little bit jealous that I get the extra time, but that's just the way it is around here. So I've dropped off all the information I needed for him to complete my taxes and was very pleased to hear that I'm doing everything the way I should be. So it was a nice conversation discussing future goals and things, and it's nice to know that I'm on track and I'm doing things right. So that was kind of fun. I did get a new project submitted to me, a new logo design. Always love working on logos, so this one should prove a little bit interesting. And I'll give you a little bit of an update on what I mentioned last week, that website client where the one guy called me up and asked me to design a website, and I was already halfway through designing a website for that same company, but I had been hired through a marketing agency. I've talked to both the marketing agency and the client since then, and everything's all worked out. In fact, this afternoon, I have a meeting with both the marketing agency, this gentleman that I talked to on the phone, who's the new hire in charge of marketing for the company, and the president of the company. I'm going to be having a client meeting with them to discuss their needs for their website, because there was obviously some big discrepancies between what the marketing agency told me they needed and what the client recently told me they needed. So I'm going to sit down with them, go over all their options, find out their budget. That's a big thing. I'm going in there. I'm going to be asking them what their budget is so that I know exactly what type of solution to provide to them. So this has the potential of becoming a very big project. So I'm going to keep my fingers crossed on this one. But that's just a few of the things that I've been up to this week. Now, as I said in the intro, I'm not sharing a resource of the week this week. I am sharing a tip of the week. And you may say, well, Mark, this is a little bit of a cop-out. This isn't really much of a tip. But with summer finally here, at least in North America, I know if you're listening from Australia, your winter is just starting. So this may not apply to you, or it may, I don't know. But for those of us here in North America, in the US and Canada, summer is just starting. So my tip of the week is take time out during your day to enjoy the sun. Enjoy the nice weather while it's here. It seems that more and more so these past few years, summer is very fleeting. Where I am in Canada, we're already partway through June, and it hasn't felt anything near like spring and summer weather so far. It's been cold, it's been rainy, and finally this weekend's supposed to be the first nice weekend of the year, and I plan on taking advantage of it. But not only that, during the week, the last couple of days have been really nice, and I've been taking time out during the day to just go stand out back in my backyard, throw the ball for the dog, just spend some time enjoying the sun, soaking up the rays. We spend so much time in front of our computers. We need to take advantage when the nice weather is here and we can get out, even if it's just for a couple of minutes. Last week, I talked about your eyesight and the 20-20-20 rule. Every 20 minutes, you should look away from your computer, focus on something that is 20 feet away for 20 seconds. Well, this is the perfect opportunity. When the weather is nice, the nice sunny weather, get outside, look around. That's definitely stuff that's more than 20 feet away. It'll do your eyes good and it'll do you good. So that's my tip of the week. Just get out and enjoy the nice weather if you can. And if you're somewhere like Australia where your winter's starting, you could probably have some nice days out there even though it is winter. Do the same. get outside. Even if it's just for a couple of minutes, you open up your front door, you leave your apartment, you go outside just for a minute or two, take a few deep breaths and go back in. You'll feel rejuvenated and refreshed and ready to tackle your next part of your project. So that's my tip of the week this week. And now, cold emails, 10 tips to help them convert. Now, cold email, equivalent to cold calling, is when you send unsolicited email to someone without prior contact with them. A cold email is a very effective way to reach out to potential new clients. It's so effective, in fact, that it's been used since businesses have been around. Well, okay, maybe not cold emailing, but cold calling has been. Even before phones were invented, business people would knock on strangers' doors trying to sell their wares. That's cold calling. Approaching somebody that you don't currently have any sort of business relationship with, or maybe not even just a business relationship, somebody that you do not know, you have never had prior contact with them, reaching out to them in the hopes of getting business. That's what cold calling, and in the case of this episode, cold emailing, is all about. It's a practice that has worked for generations, and it can work for your design business. Let me just get one myth here out of the way, and that's that cold emails are not the same thing as spam. Cold email is a one-on-one personalized message sent to a specific individual. Its purpose is to start a business conversation with that one single person, rather than sending an email out to the masses promoting your services. That would be spam. If you created one email and then sent it off to 10, 20, 30, 100, 200, 1,000 different people, that would be considered spam. But if you write a specific email to one specific person, that is not spam. So I just wanted you to know that. The difference is that when you're cold emailing, every email needs to be addressed to a single person. That doesn't mean that parts of the email can't be used for multiple people, but every email, not just addressed to Dear John, but there should be something in the email that pertains particularly to John's situation so that you know you're talking specifically to John and not to everybody that could potentially be a client. So that's the difference between what a proper cold email is compared to a spam email. Now, I did a little bit of research, and did you know that email in the form that we know it today has been around since the mid-70s? It actually started in the early 60s, but the way we use email today has been around since the mid-70s. Now, as far as technology goes, that's archaic. And yet, even in today's world of social media platforms, direct messaging, video chats, and all the likes like that, email still reigns. Facebook, the world's largest social media platform, boasts over 2.2 billion users worldwide. But there are over 3.8 billion email users. That's almost double the number of Facebook users. There are over 500 million tweets sent every single day. But that's just a small drop in the bucket compared to the 281 billion emails sent every day. Face it, business is built on email. And if you want to get ahead with your design business, especially by doing cold emailing, which is a very effective way to attract clients, knowing how to write effective and compelling emails is something you should not ignore. And this is especially important when sending out cold emails to people who don't know you. If you cannot capture someone's attention with your first email contact, what chances do you have of starting a working relationship with them? And that's why I want to share with you 10 tips that will help your cold emails convert. And of course, these tips apply to all emails, but specifically to cold emails, because once again, the person receiving them has no idea who you are. So you have to do your absolute best to make sure that email will convert. So the number one tip is being self-aware. The problem with the written word is everybody interprets it differently. your meaning could be misconstrued and not come across the way you intended. Think of lots of different times that you've read something and you weren't sure exactly what the person was trying to say. Think of this very simple 3-word sentence. I can't wait. What does that mean? Does it mean that I'm looking forward to something with anticipation? Or does it mean that time's up? I can't wait any longer. Without the context that is delivered through voice, when you're just reading something, the written words can have the possibility of being misconstrued and not come across the way you intend them to. So in order for your words to come off the way you do want them to, you need to be self-aware of what you're writing. Meaning, you need to imagine yourself in the recipient's shoes and try to understand how they will receive your message. Now, this is a little bit harder than you think, but the best way to do this is make sure that whenever you're writing, choose sentence structures and words that are straightforward and only have one meaning or interpretation. Instead of saying, I can't wait to hear from you, write, I look forward to hearing from you. I know it sounds silly, but don't leave it to chance. Now, tip number 2 is length. Be efficient when you're writing your emails. The less you write, the more chances of your message being read and you receiving a reply. I subscribe to dozens of email lists. Some are design related, some are podcast related, and some for just other interests I have. And I can tell you that I read almost every short message I receive, but I will rarely read any of the long ones, especially the ones that when I get them, I look and they fill up the whole page and I scroll and I see how long it is. A lot of those I just end up deleting, or I save them thinking, oh, maybe I'll read it later. And then later when I come across it again, I'm not going to read this, and I delete it. And that's from people that I have actually asked. I've signed up to receive their stuff. So I want to hear from these people, but I don't want to hear or read a novel from them. And if that's the case with people I've asked to receive stuff, imagine how people react when a message comes in from a complete stranger. So if you are sending a cold email to somebody who has no idea who you are, and you write a message that's several pages long, what are the chances that they're going to take the time to read this from a complete stranger? Next to none. So keep your messages short. In 2018, there was a study done by HubSpot that said that only 1 in 3 messages longer than 2,500 words ever receive a reply. And their study concluded that between 50 to 125 words, perhaps the length of, say, a small paragraph, is the ideal length when sending unsolicited emails. I'll provide a link to this study that HubSpot did in the show notes for this episode if you're curious to learn more. What it comes down to is people are busy. Some people receive dozens, if not hundreds, of emails every day. So to increase your chance of being read and possibly receiving a reply from them, keep your messages brief. Now, step number 3 is be clear. I just talked about keeping your emails short, but short isn't good enough if your message isn't clear. Skip all the niceties and get directly to your point. Remember, you're keeping it short, so you're limited to how many words you can use. And messages that come across as boasting or too academic in writing style makes it very difficult to understand and can hurt your odds of getting a reply. You need to be clear. The company behind the Gmail add-on called Boomerang found that emails written at a 3rd grade reading level are 36% more likely to receive a reply than those written at a college reading level. So when you're composing your email, be as clear as you can. Don't try to sound smarter than you normally do. Excessive formality or complex sentences and long-windedness won't impress anyone. Be clear in your message. Now, tip number 4 is be specific. Now, you may be wondering, well, what's the difference between being specific and being clear? Being clear, as I just said, was the sentence structure, the way you write. Well, being specific is what you write about. Be very specific in why you are sending an email to this person and what you are expecting from them. A cold email should not be an approach where you list every single service you offer to them. Those don't work. Instead, mention the one single service you think this client is in most need of. If you think they need a new logo, talk just about the logo. If you think they need a new website, talk just about the website. Don't go in there saying, I can design a logo, I can design a website, I can do this, I can do that, I can do that. No, you're going to lose them. Let them know that you can help them with that particular service. Then let them know how they can get in touch with you should they want help with that one particular service. Only once you actually get the conversation started, if they reply to you about the website, the logo, or whatever, only then can you start mentioning the other services you offer. At that point, it's no longer cold emails, you're starting a relationship. So it's okay to mention it at that point. But to start off, remember, this is a cold outreach. Stick to one specific topic and you will get a much better return on your investment. Tip number 5, ask a question. According to that same HubSpot research that I mentioned earlier, emails that ask 1 to 3 questions are 50% more likely to receive a reply than emails without a question. A question is the email version of a call to action. It informs the recipient that you are expecting a response from them. You're not just giving them information, you're asking them to respond with information. And this will increase your chances of receiving a reply. So keeping your message short, to the point, concise, about one single topic, and asking a question drastically improves your chance of getting a reply and starting a conversation with this person. Tip number 6, use soft language. Remember, cold emails are sent to people that don't already know you. You don't want their first impression of you to be somebody that's harsh. Don't overstep your bounds or come off as too forward. Avoid this by using a friendly, more suggestive language. Instead of saying something like, call me to discuss this more, say something along the lines of, if you'd like to discuss this more, call me. It's friendlier and it's more inviting to a reply. So use softer language as opposed to formal, hard language. Tip number 7, use short sentences. This is a secret that copywriters use. The longer the piece of text is that they need to write, the shorter the paragraphs they use. Now, I don't know if they teach this in writing or journalism school or whatever, but it is very effective. Shorter paragraphs creates more white space, making it easier to read. And as a designer, you know the importance of white space when it comes to design. Well, it's just as important in reading. If you see a big wall of text, you will be much less inclined to read it than if you see text that's broken up into multiple small paragraphs with a lot of white space. It's much more inviting and it makes people want to read it more. So use short sentences and short paragraphs in your cold emails. Tip number 8, read your email before sending it. How many times have you received an email from somebody and you start reading it only to see it full of grammatical or spelling errors or just stuff that doesn't make sense or incomplete sentences? And what does it make you think of that person? Yes, we're all busy. And sometimes it's simple to just write up an email quick and send it off. But that is a huge mistake. You should never do this when composing cold emails, or any email for that matter. Take the extra time to read over your email. Better yet, read it out loud. You'd be amazed at what happens when you read something out loud. Doing this will help you catch typos, it'll help you catch weird language, excessive verbiage, and anything else that may hurt your credibility. You don't want to send an unpolished message, so read it out loud if you can, and read it a second time if you have the time. Make sure everything is right before you press send. Speaking of pressing send, that brings me to tip number 9, and that's add the email address last. One of the worst feelings there is accidentally pressing send on an unfinished email. At least on social media, when you're posting something to Twitter or Facebook and you accidentally hit the return and it posts, you can go in and edit that post, or you can delete it and recompose it right away. But once you send an email, it's gone and there's nothing you can do about it. And if an email was accidentally sent before you were finished, it makes you look like an amateur. It makes you look very unprofessional, especially if this is the first time you're reaching out to someone. So the easiest thing to do to avoid this feeling is by doing, first of all, everything I said, steps 1 through 8, all of those tips for composing your email. Do all of that before you add the recipient's email to the message. With no email there, if you accidentally hit send, it'll say, sorry, there's no recipient, we can't send the message. And that will save you. And finally, tip number 10 is follow up and follow up again. If you don't hear back from someone that you send a cold email to, don't give up, follow up. Most people live busy lives and can't answer every email they receive from strangers. But if you follow up, they may take notice and take action. Statistics show that 80% of inquiries require multiple follow-ups before an action is taken. And yet, 44% of people give up after their first follow-up on something. And that's where they fail. I get unsolicited messages targeting this podcast almost every day. People that want to get on and sponsor the show that have nothing to do with the industry. People that want to write guest articles for my blog that have no idea what Resourceful Designer is about. And I'd say 99% of these messages that I get, I just delete. But I will tell you, those who follow up several days later get back to me and say, did you get that message? I might delete that again. But if they do it again and again and they follow up, eventually I do reply to them. Now, in some cases, the reply may simply be, thank you, but I'm not interested. But they're getting a reply from me. And that's because they were following up. Their initial emails were deleted. But there have been certain cases where the follow-up has led me to at least open up a dialogue, a conversation with these people, wanting to know more about their service or that, just in case maybe it is a fit. So following up does work. And by doing this, if you do make sure you follow up on your cold emails, this is how you can succeed where other designers fail by sending their cold emails. Now, the best thing to do with your follow-up is to follow the 2-1-1 rule. And that is you send your email and then you wait 2 days. If you haven't heard back, then you follow up. Now, if you still don't hear back after that follow-up, you wait 1 week and then you follow up again. And if again you do not hear back, wait for 1 month and then follow up for a final time. After that, you can give up. But what this strategy does is it allows you to get through to people who, I don't know, maybe they were having a bad day and they just simply ignored your email, or their email box was just so full that they didn't bother taking the time to read yours and they just deleted it. Or it can also be that those people were away. They were on conferences. They were on vacation. They were out of the office for whatever reason, and they may have missed the email, or especially if they were away for a period of time and they get back to an inbox that's hundreds, if not thousands of emails full, the chances of getting a reply in those instances are very small. So following up may be your best chance of finally touching base with this person. So follow the 2-1-1 rule. Follow up after 2 days, after 1 week, and 1 month. After that amount of time, if you still haven't heard back, chances are you won't. So those are the 10 tips that I wanted to share with you to improve your chances of getting a lead through a cold email. Tip number 1, be self-aware of what you are writing. Tip number 2, worry about length. Keep your messages short. Tip number 3, be clear in the voice that you use. Don't use academic language. Keep it to general language. Tip number 4, be specific. Talk about one single topic. Tip number 5, ask a question. It's the best way to get a reply. Number 6, use soft language. Number 7, keep your sentences and your paragraphs short. Number 8, read your emails over, preferably out loud before sending them. Number 9, wait till you're completely ready before adding the email address and pressing send. And finally, number 10, follow up and follow up again. It'll increase your chances of getting a reply. Now, I just want to quickly go over some rules when it comes to unsolicited cold emails. Now, this will depend on where you live and where the recipient of your cold email lives. You may fall under certain legal legislations and laws restricting how you proceed with your cold emails. These regulations include stuff like the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation that came through in Europe last year, the CCPA, the California Consumer Privacy Act, CAN-SPAM Act, the Canadian anti-spam legislation, the Australian Spam Act, the New Zealand's Unsolicited Electronic Messages Act. Now, I'm not going to go through each one of these and what is allowed and what is not allowed. I will link to an article here that does go into detail on each one. But for the most part, as long as you are targeting one single individual and you are not collecting, storing, or selling any of their data, then you should be clear in these and not be penalized or doing anything illegal when it comes to these acts. But you do have to make sure that if the person emails you back and says, please don't contact me anymore, that you abide by that. So that's the one caveat, the one thing that you really have to worry about with cold emails is if the person says, thank you very much, but no thanks, please remove me from your list, please don't send me any more messages, then you need to abide by those demands. And if you do, then you should be fully protected under any of these acts. But again, I'm not an expert on this. I will include the link to an article that lists all the different information about these different acts and whether or not you should be worried. And again, it all depends on where you live and where the person you're sending the email to lives. So I just wanted to put that out there just so that you know that there is maybe a little bit of research just to find out. So in all, cold emails are a communication tool that can greatly increase your client base and your revenue when done right. And they're much easier to implement than something like cold calling over the phone or in person. If you're an introvert or if you're a person who isn't comfortable going up and talking to a complete stranger, then a cold email is the perfect opportunity for you. You're doing practically the same thing, but you're not doing it face to face. And of course, not every cold email will work. But if you send out dozen, 2 dozen, 50, 100, some of them will convert and will become clients. So it's a great way to help build up your client base. And if you apply these tips and strategies that I shared with you today, you should see your return on those cold emails drastically increase. So give it a shot. Now, I would love to know if you already use cold emails as part of your marketing campaign for your design business. And if so, how are they working out for you? Leave me a comment for this episode at resourcefuldesigner.com/episode 168. And now this week's question of the week. This week's question is a short one from Will. Will asks, have you ever looked into becoming Adobe certified? Other than personal education, I'm wondering whether clients ever consider this when choosing a designer. Well, thank you very much for the question, Will. And in fact, I was Adobe certified. Now, this is going back, I would say 20, if not 25 years ago. Back in the way early days, this is when I was at the print shop. We thought that being Adobe certified might help people because it was at the time where PDFs were just coming around. Actually, I think this was before PDFs, but Illustrator and Photoshop were still fairly new. And we thought that it may help by being certified to attract people, not to mention that being certified meant you were listed on a special website so that if people were searching, they would find you and know you were certified. So not only was I Adobe certified for Photoshop, Illustrator, and I can't remember what else. I know InDesign wasn't around back then, and I never did learn InDesign, but I think there was some others. I was also certified Quark Express because that was the page layout program at the time. Still the page layout program I use today. But I can say that in the time, and I forget how many years I was certified, we never saw any return on it. Nobody ever mentioned it. Nobody ever said that they came to us because I was certified. We never received any outreach from it. And eventually, when it came time for me to recertify, we decided that it just wasn't worth the expense and the time for me to get recertified. Now, there are definitely some benefits to it, but as a small business owner, I can tell you that since that time, since I was certified, I have never, ever been asked if I was Adobe certified. Now, have there been clients that have not chosen me because I wasn't, or that I didn't say I was? I have no way of knowing that, but I don't think it has impeded my business in any way. I don't think it affects the client's decision. I mean, it's a nice caveat if you are to be able to tell a client you're Adobe certified, but in the end, that's just kind of an add-on to a tool. What the client really cares about is your creativity, whether or not you can design something. Whether you're certified or not to use the tool is really irrelevant. As long as you can come up with the proper solution to whatever design problems they're facing, they should be happy. Now, if you want to be certified just for the education and for the experience of going through it, do it for yourself and something that you can add on to your resume. Who knows? Maybe if you're looking for a job at an agency or something like that, maybe it'd be more impressive to them. But as a home-based designer or a freelancer, I really don't think you need to be Adobe certified. Now, I would love for somebody to correct me. If you are Adobe certified and you think it does help you, please reach out to me. Send me an email, feedback@resourcefuldesigner.com. I would love to know, because in my personal opinion, I don't think it's worth it. So anyways, thank you very much for the question, Will. I love answering these questions, and I think I'm running a little bit low. I'll have to check the mailbag, the Resourceful Designer mailbag, and see what's left in there. But I think I'm running a little low. So if you have a question that you would like answered on a future episode of the podcast, please visit resourcefuldesigner.com/feedback and submit your question. Now, just another note before I go. If you listen to the podcast in Overcast, Overcast is a popular podcast listening app on, I think it's iPhones. I don't know if it's available on Android. I know it's available on iPhones. But if you listen to the Resourceful Designer in Overcast, they now have a new feature where you can clip, I think it's 1-minute segments. So if you think something I said or a point I bring up is important, or you think other designers need to hear that, you can clip that 1-minute section of the podcast and share it over social media, over Twitter, over Facebook, and such. So that's a new feature that's been added to Overcast. So please feel free, if you do want to do that, post clips of the show. And if you do it on Twitter, tag me at ResourcefulD, or on Instagram at ResourcefulDesigner. I would love to see them. And of course, please, if you know any designers, you have any friends that are in the design space and you think they can benefit from anything that I say here, please share the podcast with them. It's available everywhere, including Spotify, iHeartRadio, and even now I'm available on Pandora. So that's something that's new. And of course, there's always the Apple and Android apps that you can download containing all the episodes from the show. So that's it for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you got some value and that you're going to test out your cold emailing and see if it can bring you some new business. Until next episode, I am Mark Decote, wishing you all the best with your graphic design business and reminding you to stay creative.
Thanks for listening to the Resourceful Designer Podcast at resourcefuldesigner.com.